Hello friends, my name is Nick, and today I have another little propagation project to get started on, so let's turn the camera around so you can see what I'm looking at. So there's a lot of plants growing on my trellis here in my living room, but there are two that are the main plants that have been really taking up the whole thing and growing up to my ceiling. So on the left I have my philodendron jerry horn, and on the right is my Syngonium chiapense. And the jerry horn, while it's at my ceiling, this new leaf still needs some time to harden off, so I'm gonna let this chill for a couple more weeks. But the Syngonium chiapense has already had one grow up to the ceiling that I've cut back, and then there's this other cutting, which is gonna be a little bit more difficult to see, but you can kind of see right up there, it kind of folds over as it kind of has given into its own weight. So it's time to cut that back. And if we work our way down to the planter's base, we have to look through this mess of a jungle here. It's pretty bald down here. Leaves don't start growing until about 3 feet up. So my thought process was I can take this cutting and then combine the other cutting, and in the long run, I can put it back inside this planter here and have a much more fuller Syngonium chiapense. I don't think we're going to accomplish all of that in today's video. I think we're just going to accomplish the propagation aspect of it, but just to give you an idea of what my end goal is. But we're going to have to somehow set up this camera so I can chop this vine here. The lighting is not very good and I only get one shot at this, so hopefully you can at least remotely see. But you can probably see there's this clear bend in the plant, and I'm thinking I want to leave this leaf, even though I should cut it back a little bit more, but I just don't feel like dealing with this large amount of plants. So we're going to cut it back to right literally where this is hanging from. I feel like that's where the break happened when this thing kind of fell over and snapped. While it's still completely healthy, it just doesn't have the support it had before. So in between these two nodes, exactly like how you would be chopping a pothos, I'm just going to cut cleanly with my precision snips. And here we go. I guess my plant is kind of tangled in. And here's our lovely cutting of Syngonium chiapense. I'm just going to leave this old vine be. I could move the plant's tape around a little bit, but I think it's doing fine. It has plenty of support. But this is obviously a little funky with this bend in it, but let's move over to the counter so we can figure out what we're doing. This cutting is admittedly a little bigger than I kind of want to be working with. I was thinking it was only gonna have like 3 leaves on it, but we have 5, which it's fine. It's just huge, as you can see. So what I think I'm actually gonna do is cut this into 2 cuttings, because it's got this big bend right here because the thing had been hanging down, so it's constantly working its way back up to the light. So let's just cut it like naturally in between these 2 plants. We'll still have 2 nodes down here. This will regrow, and then this has its growing tip, which this is going to produce growth the fastest. This one's obviously going to take time, but we have time, and we have another plant, which I will show you soon, that has another growing tip on it. So I think we are set with Syngonium chiapense. Oh, we have someone coming in to say hello. Hi, sweet pea. Muffin, come over here, sweetie. Come say hello. Hi, Bootsy. Oh, sweetie. Okay, but the Syngonium chiapense is kind of what we're here to talk about today, Muffin. As much as you want to be the star of the show, I know that. But she loves the Syngonium. See how much she loves it. Muffin, how do you feel about this? She loves it. Do you see? She loves it. Okay, so we're going to cut in between these 2 nodes, just like we would be doing for a pothos. So I'm going to cut. There we go. Oh, I know. Craziness, right, sweet pea? And we don't really need this extra plant material right here, so I'm just going to cut a little of it back in case it does start to rot away. We just have less to worry about. And you can stick these in water. You can, I mean, I wouldn't recommend sticking them in soil just because they do droop quite a bit. I noticed with Syngonium chiapense, they take while they don't take that long to root, they do get a little droopy as they are rooting. So I have this jar here. Like I said, you can just use some water if you would like, but I'm gonna use leca pebbles today. You can get this at pretty much any garden center. I got these at IKEA, I'm pretty sure. It's like the potting medium of choice at any IKEA. And you can also get them on repotme.com. I'll leave a link in my description below as where you can purchase it. And I believe this is considered a potting mix. I could be wrong, but you can use code NICK to save 10% on any potting medium on repotme.com. But so I've just filled up this jar with some leca, probably like 2/3 of the way, maybe 3/4 of the way, and I filled up the whole jar with water just because it's easier to put things in the leca with the full thing of water instead of kind of fighting the pebbles. So let's take this one plant right here, the one that looks fabulous. So we're just gonna work it in. You can see that it's just naturally making its way down to the bottom. I guess we could have even used some root hormone in this. Should we? Yeah, let's get some rooting hormone. So I'm just gonna go over to my gardening cabinet. This will just hopefully make the plant root quicker. In theory, that's what it's for. All plants take a different amount of time to root. So let's just get a little bit in the cap here. I don't know if you could see the product. I know it's a little off camera. So take root. And then I'm just going to dip the end as well as all of my little nodes here. I'm sorry if you couldn't see that. Before we go ahead and put it into our medium here. There we go. And let's do it again with this guy here. You can see just a little dib dab in the powder. I'm going to do these sets too, even though I don't know if they're going to, oh, well, I'm having trouble even getting in there. So I guess the one is fine. But let's go ahead and submerge this. Wonderful. And then I'm just gonna take this over to my sink real quick, and I'm going to dump out, I'd say, roughly half of the water. You only really need like, I'd say about half to a quarter of the vessel full of water. You might even consider that to be too much in some situations, but now we wait. It should take roughly a month for this to root up. Now that we're in the growing season, it might take a little bit quicker than that. We'll probably start to get some roots on this plant in a week or two, but like I said, my Syngonium chiapenses get, is that the plural form? I don't know. They get kind of droopy when I'm propagating them, and they stay droopy for a couple of weeks. In fact, in a Food Network-like fashion, I have this Syngonium chiapense right here that I've been propagating for, I'd say, about a month and a half at this point, maybe like 5 weeks. And you can see all of these green parts around the glass. I guess it's kind of underneath too. These are the roots that have grown in my Syngonium chiapense. And while this only took about a week or two to start producing roots, like I was saying, it did get really droopy until about a week ago, I'd say. I mean, it was less droopy over time, but it really didn't perk up the way it's just really perky at this point until just the last couple of weeks. You can see this one, unfortunately, has some thrips damage on it, which is actually why I propagated it in the first place, because I noticed that these leaves had a couple of thrips on them. Unfortunately, by propagating it, I was able to eradicate the problem. So now you can see our end goal. We will have all of these plants, you can't see, all of these plants shoved together. We could even just make a brand new planter if we wanted to, and it'll look fabulous. But like I was saying, to save space, I could just include these all back into the planter that we have back there on my Syngonium chiapense on the trellis, and create a fuller plant, and then just have the full Syngonium chiapense experience from just floor to ceiling, honey. It'll be beautiful. But that's really all there is to it with propagating this. I could repot it, like I said, but I would like to wait for these to root up before I go ahead and just pot them all together or plant them up in the mother planter. If I weren't waiting for these other guys to be ready and I was going to pot this up right now, I would just use a standard aroid potting mixture, which would include just your standard peat moss or coconut-based potting soil mixed in with some perlite or some pumice and some orchid bark and some charcoal. There are plenty of additives you can add, and I have a bunch of videos out that talk about that, including my recent propagation video on how to propagate Philodendron erubescens red emerald, which I did go ahead and pot it up if you are curious. I would use the same exact soil for my Syngonium chiapense here. But that's really all there is to it. A super easy propagation project, just takes some time. But I think the biggest takeaway from this project is to expect your Syngonium chiapense to droop. Unless you're working with the most humid conditions, I would expect your plant to get a little bit droopy, but it should root up and it will recover fine, at least in my own experience. So just hang in there and maybe wait a little bit longer to pot this up than you would with some of your other houseplants, like a standard golden pothos. But that's going to do it for today's video, how to propagate Syngonium chiapense. Thank you so much for joining me. If you don't already, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at phillyfoliage. Subscribe to my Patreon for even more houseplant content. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.